I've got a question for you. Do you want better mixes? Do you like your audio production workflow so streamlined you could literally set it and forget it and get a perfect mix every single time? Do you like high quality effects and useful utilities that improve the quality of your music and make your life easier? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I've got a template that you gotta try out. In today's video, we're gonna take a deep dive into the utility template for Ableton Live, created by my good friend and bandmate Don Tyler of Remote Vision, Hinterland, and Ascendant. I've been using this template exclusively for the past 9 years, so in today's video, I'm gonna show you how it works and why you need it. If you're interested in picking up this template so you can follow along this tutorial, you can purchase it at Material by Samphera. I'll leave the link in the description box down below. That being said, let's get into the utility template for Ableton Live. What's up guys, Chris here from Signs of Life. Welcome back and welcome to this exclusive look and tutorial on the utility template for Ableton Live. You know, I get asked about this template a lot, and it's not that I'm tired of the questions, but I feel like in order for you to properly understand what I've been doing in Ableton Live, I feel like there should be a point of reference about what this template is, what it can do, and why I use it. I feel like it's a really powerful tool, especially if you use Ableton. And even if you don't use Ableton, you might pick up on a couple things, such as the routing, the signal routing, gain staging, things like that. The utility template has it all. And I've been using it exclusively for all of my tracks since 2013. It's gone through several different iterations. And this is sort of close to the final iteration with some custom modifications, which we're gonna talk about. So in this video, we're just gonna take a look. We're gonna go all the way back to where the utility template started and how it evolved and then how I use it so you guys can have a better understanding moving forward. All right, so let's start with the history of it. Back in 2012, I met a man named Don Tyler, and him and I started making music together. He's in Los Angeles, I'm here in the Bay Area. For those of you who don't know, that's about 6 hours away. So we started trading files back and forth, and those files became the first album from the group Ascendant, and the rest is history, right? So we kind of felt like not only did we need to sort of like sync up in that way, but in order for us to properly work together, we might need to switch to the same DAW. So we chose Ableton Live. He was using Logic at the time. I was using Pro Tools, I think. And so we chose Ableton. And so Don started making these templates that we could start all of our tracks on. And every 3 or 4 months, we'd have like a new template, and he'd send me the new template, and it just kept organically growing and evolving in that way. And so that's sort of how this whole template came to be, which was out of Don's sort of need and desire to have us using something that was sort of a standard. And then over time, it just became this thing where it was like, you know, a production template came and we'd have to change all our stuff. But at the same time, it kept growing and it kept evolving, which was really cool to see. Like it got better and better and better. And the more that I started using this whole system, the more it made sense to me. And now, as I said, it's indispensable in my workflow. So that's how the utility template came to be. Now, fast forward, let's say 3, 4, 5 years in 2020, we finally sort of started our own offshoot from Samphera and Exosphere to release all of our presets and sound designs. And that's where the utility template lives. So let's start with how you get the utility template. Let's just start there, okay? So the utility template is found at Material by Samphera. This is material.bandcamp.com. Now, it's the first listing, and it's called Utility by Remote Vision, and it says Buy Digital Album. But in the finer print, it says, in addition to the demo track, a zip file including a new Ableton template, presets, and documentation will be included with your purchase. So even though it says digital album, you're still getting the Ableton Live project, the presets, and the doc. So this is how to get it. It's $10. It's at material.bandcamp.com. I'll leave the link down below in the description. So let's get into the template. Now, when you open up the utility template for the very first time, you're going to be greeted with a couple tracks. Those are your default tracks. And then there's a folder called Utility Effects. And then there's the 4 buses and the rest of the send effects. Now, I highly recommend when you first open up the utility template for the very first time that you right-click on those default MIDI and audio tracks and save those as your default audio and MIDI tracks in Ableton Live. You can also customize the template any way you like and then come up to the file menu. This is in Ableton Live 11, and you can save the set as template. If you're on Ableton Live 10 or 9 or anything like that, it's in the preferences. But in Ableton Live 11, they chose to move it here, and now it's save live set as default set. All right. So that's how to sort of get this into your everyday workflow. So then when you start a new track or you open up just start a brand, make a new MIDI track, new audio track, all of the good stuff that comes with utility is going to be there by default. All right. So like I said, this is something that I'm working on here. So this is not like a blank set. I just want to show you this track by example because it has some routing already in place, and then we can listen to this track and we'll get into what the template is. All right. So here we go. Work in progress, but it's an audio example just to show you what the template is all about. All right. So, like I said, when you just launch a new MIDI track or you just got to add a new MIDI track or new audio track, you're going to be greeted down here at the bottom with what's called the production channel strip curve. Now, this is one of the most important parts of the utility template. Why is this important? Because every single production channel strip curve has 3 different stock plugins: the utility plugin, the production channel strip curve, which we're going to talk about in a second, and then a compressor. All right. So that's pretty much what you're going to get on every single track that you lay down. Now, why would you use this? All right. So this is used for gain staging, first of all. So if I just I'm going to solo this track, right? And if I turn up the gain here, you're going to see that the gain reduction on the compressor lights up. All right. The goal for every track is to properly gain stage your track so that you barely see that gain reduction light up. That means that you're barely hitting the threshold of the compressor, okay? What is the threshold of the compressor? That's the lowest possible point where then you start introducing gain reduction into your signal, right? What this does though, since the threshold here is at -18, now I want you to kind of pin that number up and we'll come back to it in a second. Because it's set to -18, it allows you to properly gain stage all of your tracks before they actually reach the master fader. If you don't know what gain staging is pulling down the gain so it properly routes all the way through your template until it gets to the master fader. Why would you want to do this? So you don't overload the master fader, introducing clipping, artifacts, things like that. Gain staging is super important, especially when it comes to this kind of music, all right? So this production channel strip curve, this was designed by Don to sort of eliminate or pre-eliminate some of the harsher frequencies that you probably don't want, okay? Now, you can either choose to use this production channel strip curve or not. Some people say, why would you have the same curve on every single track? It's a really good curve, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. It's a really good curve, so I can turn it off. No real noticeable difference. If you're already a good sound designer or you're using good sound already, you're not gonna notice it that much, all right? This is a preset that I made inside of Hive. I've talked about this many times on the channel. It's called the Hive. All right, so that's what you're doing here. Now, the other thing is it has 4 different buses. Now, what are the buses? The buses are destinations that you're going to route your tracks instead of routing it to the master fader, all right? So this is routed, it says audio to synth bus. Now let's go over here and see that there's 4 different buses. There's the drum bus, bass, synth, and pad, all right? Now, the synth bus is where this is going because it's a synth. Now, if we had something like a kick drum, which we'll activate over here, okay? The kick drum over here is going to the drum bus, all right? The buses, as far as I know, are pretty much the same, okay? They're not different from one another. However, it's a way of organizing your tracks and sort of grouping them instead of having them all slam the same bus, if that makes sense, all right? So anyway, this one's properly gain stage over here. Actually, it's not. So let me do by example. I'm just gonna pull down the gain here, kind of get that barely Now, on the compressor, a kick drum is a very sharp, quick sound. You might want to use peak here instead of RMS. A little pro tip, all right? Peak does better with quick transients, and RMS is more for evening your tracks out. All right, so that's that. Now we're gonna go over to the buses again, all right? So this comes into the drum bus. Now, what is the drum bus? The drum bus has a glue compressor on it, all right, which is also set to -18 to further protect your track from over amplifying anything down in the template after that, all right, or anything down later on in the chain, okay? As you can see, it's not really doing much here. The release is set to super fast. The attack is set to pretty slow. So it's just a general overall smoothing compressor there. Nothing really major happening there, all right? Of course, when you add more elements, like we're only soloing 2 tracks, you might hear more action going on in the buses, right? All right, so anyway, all of these buses, I'm just gonna pause for a second, all of these buses route to the PreMaster fader. Now, the PreMaster fader has a EQ8 with another custom curve here, okay, again, designed by Don, and another glue compressor. Now, this time the glue compressor is set to -24, but then you're adding +3 in makeup gain here. So you're actually getting a little bit of gain back. It also has a range of 18 decibels, right? So it's sort of all in that range. It has a rather quick attack, an automatic release, which is again nice and smooth, and then ratio 4:1. So this PreMaster fader then goes to the master fader, all right? Now the master fader is adding 9 dB back. So you can see why you'd want to gain stage before you actually get to the limiter on the master fader. The limiter adds that gain back, but if you're slamming more gain into more gain, you're gonna get a clipping master fader. But if you sort of limit the gain at the beginning through proper use of gain staging, route it through a couple things to further protect your signal, you can make that gain up at the end with a limiter, all right? Using a limiter on a master fader is not uncommon, and that's what's happening here, okay? So that's the overall general workflow, is that you wanna sort of gain stage each of your tracks, and properly get them all routing into the proper buses, and those buses go into the PreMaster fader, and finally goes in the master fader. Now, this is not the stock, this is not the stock default template because I've added so many things to it. Now, over the years, I've sort of replaced the default effects that it comes with my own third-party plugins. This is a Valhalla delay with a dotted 8th note ping pong delay. We have an instance of Timeless 3 here from FabFilter. The Pro R from FabFilter. This is a very short, quick reverb. I like to use it for like drum sounds, glitch percussion, that kind of thing. It only has a 2.4 second decay time. And then we have my favorite reverb of all time, the Valhalla Room. All right, Valhalla Room with a 55 second decay time. This is the bomb. And then Valhalla Supermassive, which is free with my preset there that I've sort of just quickly designed. Now, with the utility template, you get a bunch of high quality stock made effects inside of that, and you can drag all of those effects. Here's another pro tip. Take all of the effects inside the utility effects folder, if you guys use this, and drag them over to your user folder, and then you can use those effects in any way that you please, all right? So that's basically how the utility template works. Now, some of you might be asking, why did he choose -18? And I'm gonna just kind of like go from the manual here, all right? So it says that I find that my threshold setting ends up somewhere in between -18 and -24, depending on the source material. If you find that you need some EQ on your individual buses, you can drop any of the included additional EQ8 utility presets before or after the bus compressor. I prefer pre-compressor for bus EQ. Your preference may vary, all right? So he sort of just like set this up the way he would use all of his template, right? And then again, you can use it any way that you'd like, all right? It's really quite amazing. There is a Berlin delay in here, Beyond the Horizon, the Plank Loop, the Earth Room, the Airlock, and of course the Nostalgia for Infinity was just this crazy, insane reverb that was modeled after the Lexicon LXP5. It's an outstanding product, and for only $10, it's really improved the quality of life for me, especially in Ableton. And even if you only take away the gain staging portion of it and the whole busing and routing system and properly gain staging all the way to the master fader, that whole aspect of it alone has truly been a game changer, and I highly, highly recommend it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. Hopefully you found it informative and you found it inspiring. So even if you don't use utility, If you don't, you should. So go grab that. I'll leave the link down below in the description, material.bandcamp.com. And like I said, even if you don't, you want to build your own template just like this, just take the lessons that we're learning here today. Proper gain staging, busing, routing, all the way to the master fader will get you better sounding tracks and a better result in the end. My name is Chris from Signs of Life. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Hopefully you found this video useful, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. As always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. My name is Chris from Signs of Life, and I'll see you all in the next one.